Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. Personally, doing well. I'm just getting a little over having hair, so I relieve myself of that. So I just wanted to today take a moment to go over the canonical solution to the random string chooser. I want to point out a few things. First of all, it was a good idea to use an array list. I noticed that a bunch of you tried to use an array of strings. The problem with using an array of strings is that it's hard to keep track of the ones that you already used. So if you did do that, you had to write all this other code to separately keep track of which ones you have and haven't used yet. But here we can just use a list. So we haven't really used this notation. You could have just as well written array list instead of list. List is just basically a super class of an array list. So you could have just as well written array list there, and that's probably more conventional for what we had done and would have been worked just as well. Then you initialize it inside the constructor. This is a good use for a for each loop to just fill it up. It could have been a regular for loop otherwise, but what you can't do is just directly assign it to say that words equals word array, obviously because they're different types. One's an array, one's an array list. Then, the other thing I wanted to point out, most of you had this provision for the none, although in some cases it actually never was reachable because you're returning something else first. So right up here we see, okay, do I have some words in my list? Is the size more than 0? If yes, then this statement does it all at once. Some of you guys did this in a few steps, which is fine. But you can actually just do that all at once. So here, the critical elements are as follows. You're going to choose from among the size. So some of you did like size -1, but you really don't want to do that because if you remember when you use the random, let's say the random is, say there's 5 different words, right? And then the indexes would be 0 to 4. But if you do the random and you cast it to an int, remember that casting has the effect of kind of truncating it and rounding down. So if this were 5, then this would, casting it to an int would produce variables that go from 0 to 4. Now, this might look a little weird to you that you're just returning the result of remove. But if you look back at the documentation for remove, what that actually does is 2 things. It takes it out of the array list, which is what it suggests with the word remove, but it also returns the previous value. So it gives you the value as you remove it. So even though it's called remove and not get, you are just getting it with the remove statement as well. So it does pay to go back to the documentation for array lists and look over, those exactly what all of the methods that we use do. So that's really it. You could do it here concisely in basically one return statement, or you could have just as easily put that in a few statements. Some of you had you did the random and then you stored that in a temp, then you did the remove and then you returned the temp value. That's perfectly fine. But this is just the way you could do it all at once. And for part B, the biggest thing I think was just understanding what they were asking. But it's super simple once you do it. You need to call super. So basically what that will do is get single letters, basically splits the string into the letters that make up the string. And then it would call basically this guy. It would call the method above, and it would put it into an array list and allow you to pick randomly from that. So again, I think this is the type of question where there's not really much to do. This one, in fact, is very simple, but there is some difficulty just with the interpretation. And honestly, we just need to keep reading the questions. This one is better. The results were better than some of your earlier attempts overall. We're hopefully we're getting there. I think we're starting to have a better understanding of how to read these questions, what type of things are being asked, and we're getting into more practice with the array list, which is important because arrays and array list are going to be an important component of this year's kind of exam, which is going to be less than has in previous years because we only have two questions. So there's definitely going to be some array/array list stuff in there, and we need to make sure we're very fluent about that. Okay, that's all for now. Thank you.